A further apparent Ukrainian drone attack on Moscow has damaged a building in the city's business district. No casualties have been reported.
Croatia has offered Ukraine's grain exporters a lifeline, allowing access to its ports on the Adriatic and the Danube.
Niger's ousted leader is seen on camera for the first time since last week's coup, as Chad leads a mission to mediate the crisis.
In an act of clemency, Myanmar's military government has reduced the prison sentence being served by the country's former leader Aung San Suu Kyi.
After decades of conflict, Armenia and Azerbaijan are engaged in delicate peace talks. The leaders sit down for an exclusive chat for Euronews' global conversation.
There has been a further apparent drone attack on an office building in Moscow. The city's mayor claimed on Tuesday that several missiles had been shot down, but debris from one smashed into the 21st story of a tower block in the business district. The same building was reportedly hit during a similar strike over the weekend. There were no reports of casualties. Separately, Russia says it shot down Ukrainian drones fired at two of its naval patrol boats in the Black Sea.
Ukraine and Croatia have agreed on the possibility of using Croatian ports on the Danube and the Adriatic Sea for the export of Ukrainian grain. The deal was part of talks between the two countries' foreign ministers in Kyiv. Russian airstrikes have destroyed an estimated 180,000 metric tons of grain crops in the space of 9 days this month. 2 weeks ago, Moscow pulled out of a grain deal that had allowed safe passage of food exports through the Black Sea. Ukraine is a major exporter of grain, and the deal, brokered by the United Nations and Turkey last year, kept people fed all over the world.
Ми домовилися про можливість використання хорватських портів на Дунаї та в Адріатичному морі для транспортування українського зерна. І будемо зараз працювати над тим, щоб прокласти якомога ефективніші маршрути до цих портів по суходолу, для того, щоб максимально скористатися з цієї можливості. Але кожен внесок у розблокування експорту, кожні відкриті двері – це справжній дієвий внесок у продовольчу безпеку світу.
The death toll from Monday's Russian attack on an apartment building in Kryvyi Rih rose to 6, with dozens injured. The UN says Ukraine's humanitarian needs are increasing.
Our humanitarian response plan is only 30% funded. It's almost 1st of August, but it gets cold very early in Ukraine. We have thousands and thousands of damaged houses, apartment blocks since last winter, right? So this is additional damage on top of what we had to deal with last winter.
The US is to attend August's Ukraine Peace Summit in Saudi Arabia, although Russia's not invited. It's hoped China will send a delegation.
Some 800 mostly Russian passengers on board a cruise ship were met with protests as their boat arrived in the Georgian Black Sea port of Batumi early on Friday. Hundreds of students, members of opposition parties and activists gathered at the port holding signs denouncing Russia's war in Ukraine. At least 29 people were arrested. According to Russian state-owned media, the agency that runs the cruise ship says its boats will no longer dock in the Georgian port.
Eastern Poland's ancient forests, a traditional tourist destination now bristling with military hardware. Tensions have been ramped up since Russia's mercenary Wagner group moved into neighbouring Belarus.
Państwo polskie podjęło decyzję o budowie zapory wzdłuż całej granicy z Białorusią i ta zapora jest ciągle rozbudowywana i wzmacniana, jest uszczelniana w ten sposób nasza granica. Mamy także zwiększoną obecność Wojska Polskiego i Straży Granicznej, tak żeby zamanifestować naszą sprawność oraz gotowość ewentualnej obrony, ale mam nadzieję, że do tego nie dojdzie. Jesteśmy członkiem Paktu Północnoatlantyckiego, mamy że na terenie państwa także wojska sojusznicze.
The Ministry of Defence says in addition to the newly organised military unit in Kolno, Poland is also reinforcing Griovo, Szymatysia and Czerwony Bor. While Poland is arming itself against possible provocations from Wagner's side, tourists are changing their holiday plans as a precaution, with some tourism businesses saying visitor numbers have halved.
To nie jest siła, która generalnie może wygenerować jakieś realne niebezpieczeństwo na tym terenie. Natomiast jest to bardzo mocno wykreowane przez władze, którym skończył się temat zagrożenia ze strony uchodźców. Wagnerowcy po prostu pojawili się jako nowa figura straszenia. Straszą efektywnie i powodują to, że następuje jakiś taki kolejny etap zniechęcenia turystów. Ludzie odwołują rezerwacje, ludzie pytają, czy mogą iść do lasu, na przykład właśnie, czy nie nastąpi jakiś atak.
Many people in the area say they're tired of the army presence, the noise and the constant checks, but are afraid to speak about it openly on camera, fearing of potential consequences. Some blame media's spin ahead of forthcoming elections for exacerbating the situation.
Na chwilę obecną mamy zbliżającą się kampanię wyborczą. I jak włączymy przekaz na TVN1, no to możemy zauważyć to, że tak, bezpieczne Podlasie, bardzo dużo policji, tysiące żołnierzy, żeby było bezpiecznie. Jak włączymy na TVN24 grupę Wagnera, niby szturmuje granicę wschodnią. Nic takiego tu nie ma miejsca.
Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Poland has increased its defense spending to 4% of its GDP, with the potential to reach 5% according to politicians' declaration. Thus, Poland has become one of the countries with the largest military investments in the entire NATO. Magdalena Hodownik for Euronews from Białowieża.
A mediation mission by Chad's president has produced the first sighting of Niger's ousted leader since last week's military coup. President Idriss Déby first met with General Abdulrahman Chiani, the head of the Presidential Guards unit, who declared himself Niger's new ruler on Friday. The military junta has accused former colonial power France of plotting a military intervention to reinstate deposed Mohamed Bazoum, as tensions in the region continued to grow in the wake of the coup. France has denied any intention of military intervention in the West African country. The regional group ECOWAS announced travel and economic sanctions against Niger on Sunday and said it would use force if the coup leaders don't reinstate Bazoum within a week. The European Union has cut all security cooperation and aid to Niger, while Washington has warned that US assistance depends on continued democratic governance in the country.
Myanmar's military rulers have announced a pardon for former civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi. She'd been in detention since being ousted in a coup in 2021. Aung was sentenced to 33 years in prison for a range of offences, including bribery. The pardon concerns 5 of the 19 convictions against her, and it was not immediately clear whether it would allow her release. She was one of 7,000 prisoners granted clemency by the military leadership a day after it announced a 6-month extension to the country's state of emergency.
Inflation is down in the 20 countries that use the euro, dropping to 5.3% in July, its lowest rate since January 2022. The decrease from 5.5% the month earlier comes as the Eurozone economy has also increased modestly after months of stagnation, seeing a 0.3% growth in the April to June period compared to the beginning of the year. Although that increase was spurred on in part because of Ireland's growth of 3.3%, which may have distorted the overall picture, and without it, the zone would have only seen a modest 0.1% jump.
Starting today, France is ending the systematic printing of paper receipts. This measure, which also applies to credit card receipts, has been taken in the name of the environment. The move has been criticised by some, who say in many households, sale receipts are a tool for managing the family budget. But customers will still be able to request a printout if they want it. And in some places such as restaurants, hotels and garages, printouts will remain compulsory.
After decades of conflict, Armenia and Azerbaijan are engaged in delicate peace talks, brokered by the EU. The process involves talks with both Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev and Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. The two leaders sat down with Euronews' chief international correspondent Annalise Borges for global conversation.
Yeah, I think it is right thing to be hopeful, but if we see a constructive approach from Armenian side, and most important, if they totally put down all their aspirations to contest our territorial integrity, then we can find a peace solution very soon, maybe even by the end of the year.
While deep differences remain, Prime Minister Pashinyan acknowledges negotiators face a historic obligation to their people.
Կա թերևս մի բան, որը ուղղված է հավասարաբեր եւ Հայաստանի եւ Ադրբեջանի հանրությանը, որովհետեւ եւ Հայաստանի եւ Ադրբեջանի հանրությունները պետք է պահանջեն խաղաղություն իրենց իշխանություններից։ Դա պետք է ձևակերպի որպես հանրային պահանջ եւ խաղաղություն, ճկունություն եւ հմտություն այդ պահանջը իրականացնելու։
Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. You can see the interviews in full on Global Conversation on Euronews TV and digital and on our affiliate channels from 7:30 p.m. Central European Time, Tuesday.
American actor Angus Clyde has died at his family home in Oakland, California. No cause of death has been given. The 25-year-old was said to have been struggling after burying his father in Ireland last week. Clyde played drug dealer Fesco in 17 episodes of the hit HBO drama Euphoria. A family statement said Angus was open about his battle with mental health, and we hope that his passing can be a reminder to others that they are not alone and do not have to suffer in silence.